Hey guys, and welcome back to Pet Adventures. As you can probably tell from the title and from what I'm holding, we're going to talk about tarantulas today. So this is my tarantula Xena. I don't know if you can see her that well on this camera, but she is a Mexican red-knee tarantula. And I thought today we would just kind of talk about the care on tarantulas and what wonderful pets they can actually make. Now, I'm not going to be holding her throughout this whole video because I don't want her to be stressed out throughout the whole video. I kind of want to give her space, and to be honest, I don't really handle her that much, and that really just shows you how docile most tarantulas are, at least the ones that you can get as pets. This pretty much shows how docile they are because I hardly ever handle her, and the very few times I do handle her, she's a complete sweetheart. So this is Xena. Well, for now she's Xena. I still haven't sexed her. If you guys have a better way of telling what she is or isn't, I would love to know, but right now I am just guessing females because there's no tibial hooks on her legs, and there's technically nothing I personally can identify if she is a male or female. So if you guys do know, please let me know down in the comments. So there's pretty much a controversial subject on which tarantula you should get as a first tarantula. And I mean, I've both cared for the Mexican red-knee, which I'm holding here, and a rose hair, the little rosies. So honestly, from my experience so far, I would have to say the Mexican red-knee is the sweetest. I did have some problems with my old tarantula. He was sometimes here and there quite feisty. He never actually bit me, and this one has never actually bit me. I've never once been bitten by a tarantula. I've actually held them quite a few times in the old pet shops that I've worked at, but I've never been bitten once. But I do have to say that if you do handle a tarantula, instead of getting bit, what I would actually worry about the most is if they're gonna run away, because you have no idea how fast these things can be. I know she's just kind of sitting on me like no big deal, but when they want to dart, they will dart, and it's really, really scary. I didn't even pick her up for like a long few months when I first got her because she was tinier than this, and honestly, I was just too afraid of her running off and then somehow her getting squished, or just anything could happen especially when they're small like this. So if you do get a baby tarantula, please just be cautious. Don't worry about them biting you. What I would worry about the most is them running away and them getting hurt, because they're very fragile animals and they're actually pretty kind from my experience. A lot of you guys may ask, do tarantulas make good pets? And the answer is yes. I've never had a tarantula be totally mean or aggressive with me, and they're quite easy too. What makes them such great pets is the fact that, like you can see here, they're pretty easy to be handled. Also, this is probably, a lot of people would come into the pet shops and ask me, what's the cheapest pet I can buy? And I just asked them, is there a particular subject or like a particular, not subject, a particular category, or do you get like just any animal? And they say, yeah, just any animal. And I say, honestly, out of all the pets I've ever taken care of, tarantula is the easiest pet I've ever taken care of in my life, and it is true. So if you can get past the fear, which I know a lot of people have, arachnophobia, but if you can get past the fear of them and them biting you and them crawling, honestly, they are just the sweetest pets ever. I'm honestly not sure how long I've had Xena. If you're wondering how much these tarantulas usually cost, this Mexican red-knee here I actually got for 80 bucks. I believe it was around 80. I planned on getting her when I saw her at the pet shop that I was going to get her from. And Mexican red-knee technically has always been my most favorite tarantula that you can get as pets. And believe it or not, I actually heard that they're the most docile tarantula you can get. Most people will tell you the Chilean rose hair, which is what I had previous to her, but I don't know. I mean, yeah, honestly, I do agree that this is probably the sweetest tarantula I've ever had, and definitely the most docile. But as you can see, she's just chilling on my shoulder now. Now, I don't know if you can see it from here, but her butt does have quite a few hairs kicked off. What tarantulas will do, if they're not going to bite you, is another defense they will do is they will kick the hairs off of the back of their bum, you know, the little bum area. And they say, I've never had this happen to me either, but they say that when they kick the hairs off of their bum, it feels like little tiny glass particles on your skin, and it really, really irritates it. So I haven't had that happen to me yet. Not to say it won't happen. Could happen today, could happen tomorrow, I don't know. And there is also one risk that could happen. If you are to be bit by a tarantula, you could go into what is called an anaphylactic shock if you are allergic to the bite. I mean, if you're allergic to like bee stings or wasp stings or anything like that, there's a good chance you could also have maybe an allergic reaction to a tarantula sting. I personally have never had any allergic reaction to any kind of insect, so I don't think I will, but I still am not for sure. It still could happen. If you have a baby tarantula right now that you're working with, I would suggest getting something like this. This is just a mini Exoterra. This is probably the smallest Exoterra you can get a hold of. This is currently what she's in right now, but when she gets a little bit bigger, I'd say maybe 1 or 2 molts next, I would probably put her, well, not probably, I am going to put her in this enclosure, which is bigger than what she has right now. So you have this one right here, and then you have this one right here. So you can kind of see the difference. But yeah, sorry if that one's a little dirty, the one that I just showed you, the bigger one. But it previously had a reptile in there. But I would put her in that for sure, probably her whole life. It's pretty large for just a tarantula. And there is another option as well. You can also put tarantulas in tubs like this with just a bunch of holes at the top. I had my other tarantula in this previously as well. This is very, very dirty, excuse it. But see, I have a lot of holes on the side here, a lot of holes here, holes up here, holes up here, and holes up here. If you do decide to use tubs, what's great about them is they will hold a lot of moisture in the cage, so you'll have a lot of humidity going on in there. If you have an Exoterra like this, which is what I like to keep, then you will have a lot of ventilation, so you'll have to make sure that the substrate is more moist. Tarantulas have just a straight dirt substrate. I'm just using the cocoa peat, the one that comes in a block, and then you put water on it, and then it gets all mushy, and it turns into the the moistury dirt. And for the water, what I have is, let me just see if I can get it out now. This is very dirty, excuse me, but I just have a sponge in here, and you can get that at the pet shop. And then I have some fresh spring water in here. And she's drunk out of that tons of times. I've seen her drink. So you only can feed them about once a week. 2 crickets is pretty good. You could, I guess, do more, but usually once a week, like 2 crickets is really good. Believe it or not, even though she's small, a large cricket will do really well. She's eaten the large crickets like nothing, and I tried to feed her small crickets in the past, like just a little bit. And she eats them, but I find it that she has a harder time with them because they're smaller, so they're harder to grab for her. So even when you have a baby tarantula to an adult tarantula, they should be fine on large crickets. When they're babies, like really, really small, you could probably try some small crickets, but she was really tiny, but not too tiny when I first got her. Also, I have a little tree in this enclosure, so don't forget that they are tarantulas, and even if they're not a boreal species tarantulas, they'll still always want to climb. They are like spiders, so make sure they always have something to climb in there. You can get a twig, or you can get a little tree. Just make sure there's always something that they can climb on. Because they'll climb onto the walls, they'll climb on different things and stuff. So I also have a miniature pot in here for her, and she likes to kind of just go in there to sleep, or different little things. She'll hide in there, so make sure you have something that they can hide in as well. Another very, very, very important tip is definitely make sure that they have a lot of moisture when they are about to molt. Now, if you're familiar with reptiles, you'll know that they shed their they shed their skin out, And what happens with tarantula is they have something called an exoskeleton, meaning the skeleton's on the outside. So what they do is, a lot of the times your tarantula will look dead because it'll be upside down in the enclosure. this is completely okay. Do not freak out. What this means is they're about to molt out of their outer skin. They're going to get out of that, and then they're going to be an even bigger tarantula. So it's just the process of growing. So it's always a good thing if your tarantula is molting. So if you see your tarantula upside down, please, please, please do not freak out. Do not throw it away. It is not dead. As for handling, you can handle your tarantula a few times a week. I really don't recommend handling a tarantula like every single day. It's not like they really enjoy being handled. They just can be handled. But I don't think they're like ecstatic over it or anything like that. But you can definitely put them on your shoulder while you're studying or something, whatever you want. And obviously get to know your tarantula before you do anything. Don't just assume your tarantula is going to be a nice tarantula. A good way to try to see if they're going to be in attack mode all the time and be an aggressive tarantula is just kind of like get a pencil and put it in front of their face. If they turn around all the time and they kind of just ignore it and try to get away from the pencil, then that probably means they're a pretty submissive tarantula. But if they actually try to like strike and they actually put their little when a tarantula is on defense mode, they'll put the little arms up and they'll be in attack mode. So you'll know what it looks like when you see it. It's pretty obvious that they're trying to tell you to go away. If they're in attack mode every time you put your hand in there or every time you put a pencil in there, then there's a good chance you have an aggressive tarantula. I'm not going to tell you how to handle that because honestly I have no clue. I have never had a tarantula completely try to attack me before. My old tarantula was a bit more feisty when I would try to put a pencil around him. I think there was one time that he would strike, and there was a couple times when I would kind of touch his butt with a pencil and he would turn around. If they're turning around when you're trying to poke them, it's like very, very, very gently in the butt. If you're trying to just kind of poke them and see if they'll move gently, and they turn around, this is not a good sign. This also is a sign of aggression, and that's what mine did, but eventually he stopped. So I don't know, maybe he was just in quite a moody stage for a long time. But yeah, I mean, I've never had a tarantula full on try to attack me. The old tarantula I had, he would do these things, but when I really wanted to pick him up, I would just go for it, and he would never try to attack me when I would try to pick him up. A good way to also avoid being bitten is try to get them to climb up the glass or the tub, whatever they're in, and out of the cage onto your hand instead of just going completely under them and, I mean, I can do that with my tarantula, but that's because she's not at all gonna try to hurt me. I know that. So get to know your tarantula, get to know the personality, and if you kind of feel like it's a really nice tarantula, then go for it. And like I said, handling should only be a couple times a week. So if you really want to handle them, try to handle them like 3 times a week, and that's it. I don't think that it's a safe thing to be handling them every day. They are very fragile, and they could get quite sick of it. They could get quite moody, so you don't want to overwhelm them all the time. Believe it or not, tarantulas are actually really, really good pets for kids. A lot of people don't know this, but they're actually really great for classrooms. If you're a teacher and you want a class pet, they are perfect for it because kids can kind of just look at them, observe them. It's a wow pet, everyone's kind of wowed out by it, and it's really, really cool to look at, and they're actually very educational in some ways. If you wanted your students to hold them, by all means do it. If you really just want to take the extra precaution, you can get your students to wear gloves, just in case. Also, what's great is if you're a teacher and you're looking for a class pet, it's not hard to maintain. That's all I'm gonna say. It's very, very easy to maintain. Taking care of a tarantula for anybody, whether you're a teacher, you're a kid, doesn't matter. If you're taking care of a tarantula, it does not take any time out of your day. Basically, maybe it takes a few minutes out of your week. Just make sure they have water. Make sure that their dirt substrate is always clean and moist. Make sure that they're happy in their little enclosure. Make it as big as you want. And I mean, that's basically it. You don't have to handle them. If you really don't want to, you don't have to touch them. But it is probably good to at least touch them once a week, just so that they're not growing up without being handled. Because if one day you decide to handle them and you never handle them, there could be a potential bite because they'll be like, what the hell's going on? I've never handled. Important fact, your tarantula can absolutely die by being stuck in its molt. This is really, really sad, so don't let it happen. The easiest way to prevent it from happening is just make sure that the substrate is never dry. As long as it's never dry, it should be fine. And don't forget to mist the enclosure. Do not mist your tarantula, just mist, like if your tarantula is on one side of the enclosure, mist the other side. That's all you have to do. Shh, my rats. But that's all you have to do. Mist the enclosure a few times a week. Remember, do not mist the tarantula, mist the other side. And also just make sure that the actual dirt in here is always moist. And you'll never have any problems with molting. Now, I've had experience with this, so if you do have a tarantula stuck in its molt, if it's halfway through the molt, the easiest way to get it out is, this is the one time you can mist your tarantula. Take your mister, your water bottle mister, and spray the parts that are stuck to your tarantula, the old molt. Spray all those parts, and if you're spraying your tarantula while it's stuck in its molt, remember it has to be halfway through. If it's completely stuck in its molt, honestly there's nothing you can really do at this point. But if it's halfway through its molt and it can't get completely out, just moisten and mist all the parts that it's stuck in, and it should get out. That's actually how I've saved tarantulas in the past, doing that. And your tarantula can only eat crickets and worms. This is basically the only thing they can eat. Don't try to ever feed them like freeze-dried anything. Just crickets, just worms, and if you have a problem with that, look for another pet. If you're trying to start out with taking care of any kind of animal, this is the #1 animal in a way that I would recommend if you are not afraid. Now, sometimes I don't always recommend tarantulas because I know that people have a bigger fear of spiders than they even do snakes, which is funny. Yeah, people are just terrified of them. So if you really do have a complete problem with holding tarantulas and you really just don't like them, I'd rather you just not get them than them have to live an unhappy life because you're neglecting them because you don't really like them. So make sure you really want a tarantula. If you're looking for a first pet and you don't mind it being a tarantula, I would probably choose this over a leopard gecko. Because let's say your mom gives you an allowance and you can buy any pet you want. If you don't mind getting a tarantula, I'd pick this over a leopard gecko. Because basically, they do not need any heating or lighting. Room temperatures around 80 are perfectly fine. If it's really, really cold where you are, you probably should get some kind of heat source. I would have to, unfortunately, just recommend a heat mat. Heat lamps are just bad news for a tarantula. They hate light so much, and I personally would just think that they would burn pretty bad. You know, you do not want to expose them to anything like that. So overall, just get a heat mat and this is only if you live in a really, really cold climate. But if you don't and your temperature is around 70s to 80s, you should be fine. And yeah, I also suggest them because all you need is basically a box with proper ventilation. So like a tub or a little Exoterra, what I have right now. Some dirt, make sure it's moist. A water bowl with like sponge in it. Feed them once a week. 2 crickets, or a cricket and a worm, or 2 worms. Make sure they have a little hide and a little tree to climb on. And handle them at least once a week. And you're pretty good. I mean, and the misting a few times a week, especially if they're about to molt. If you can do all those things, it's super duper cheap. Cheapest pet I have ever had in my entire life. So, with all that being said, they make great pets, and please enjoy them if you do decide to get them. Leave me a comment down below letting me know if you got a tarantula after watching this. Please like and subscribe this video if you really liked seeing my tarantula Xena, and if you want to see more of her. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye! I was so scared.
Whoosh.